the day that she passed, everything was different. You know, it wasn't, I was stepping into a new era of my life being my daughter's only parent.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of thoughts. You know, initially it was like all of this adrenaline. He's like, you know, I'm gonna be perfect. You know, she's not gonna miss anything. Nothing's gonna change. And you know, if I didn't have to sleep, like whatever I had to sacrifice, right? Like, you know, that's what I wanted to be for my daughter. But then you get to a place to where you're in that position and you can't physically do that. And to be honest, it isn't fair to anybody to expect that things are gonna stay the same after a traumatic experience, like losing a mother, losing a spouse.
Are you ready? We're gonna run the play. Let's go. Do you know what it's like to come from nothing at all, but every day you just wanting it all? Do you know what it's like? Every day facing your fear, but believing that your blessing is near. Do you know what it's like? Growing up broken than most, but still being devoted the most. Do you know what it's like? Yeah, that's what the journey's about. Yeah. Let me show you.
What's up, y'all? This is Justin Owens back at the Run the Play Show, where we give you all the top plays when it comes to business, leadership, communication, finances. And today, I got a good friend of mine in the building, Courtney Hale, and we're going to be talking about money. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, bro. Appreciate you having me.
Man, appreciate you being here. You know, it was a little shaky, you know what I'm saying? He's a Titans fan, I'm a Colts fan, and we got beat last weekend. But, you know what I'm saying? I take the L. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad you're still here. So
you're a man of integrity.
You know what I'm saying? We try to keep it like that. So let's talk about, first, your business, Super Money Kids. I think it's brilliant because, you know, I teach a lot about financial literacy and business to like adults. But it's like, man, if you learn this as a kid, you may not need as much help as when you get to become an adult. What got you into teaching kids?
Yeah, man. So I worked in the financial services industry. I was a wealth manager. I did some analyst work for a fintech startup.
Nice.
And I met a lot of people, man, a lot of really wealthy people. And I was excited about the work that I was doing every day. But I got to a point where I would be like, man, how come my life wasn't like this? And so
Right, yeah.
I got to thinking
That's a
back.
good question.
Yeah, man. You know, when we got to do that sometimes, it's like think about like where we came from. And I'm from North Nashville. It's a place where there's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
Or when I grew up there wasn't a lot of money. It looked a lot different now.
For sure.
But you know, I came from a family very loving, very supportive, encouraging, positive, spiritual, all of those things.
Yeah.
But we didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
All right. So the little bit that we did have, you know, it wasn't always managed the best.
Yeah.
We didn't have conversations about wealth. It was always how do we get by.
Yeah.
And what I realized was that what we really needed was more education. We needed more conversations about how to be wealthy. And I started looking for solutions. Like, how could we get access to this information at an earlier age? And there weren't any solutions. And I found myself recognizing that there was a problem that needed a solution, but I was really uniquely qualified to create that solution. And then that became the beginning of Super Money Kids.
I love it. So let's talk. So, okay, one time you had a job, okay, and then you're like, all right, let me go out here and start my business. There are a lot of people that may be in a job now and they're like, okay, when do I make a jump? How do you make the jump? Like, what was the process for you? Like, all right, you know what? Cool, let's just start tomorrow. Like, what was that process of leaving the job, starting Super Money Kids?
You know, it was a long process.
Okay.
The things that we did correctly was, number one, I knew that I had an idea that had the potential to create income for me and my family.
Yep.
I had a really open conversation with my wife at the time. They're like, hey, I think there's something here.
Yep.
You know, what do we need to have in order to create an exit strategy? I got her support. I got her buy-in on what we were doing.
That's big.
What we were doing with our money changed, right? We had already got to a point where we wanted to create a life for ourselves that was different than how we grew up.
Yep.
So we were already doing some stuff. We were, you know, automating our savings in a certain type of way. We were looking for more ways to invest.
Yep.
We had got out of this idea of consumption and having a lot of things. We had, you know, we had a lot of luxury cars.
Yep.
We went on a lot of trips. We had designer, but we weren't really building wealth. And so we had a change in mindset with like, hey, let's start building wealth.
Yep.
And so we made those things less of a priority and we started creating plans for ourselves.
Now, you said something I think is big, and it was like, all right, I had to get her buy-in. Because there's some people, they be like, all right, well, shoot, I'm just gonna do it with myself. And, maybe that's the situation, but like, let's just talk about, okay, all right, I make a decision, we're about to leave, and you said y'all came up with an exit strategy, and I like that it took time because some people be thinking like, oh, I just hate this job today, so I'm out tomorrow, and maybe that works for some people, but it don't work for everybody.
Yeah.
What was the conversation of buy-in look like when you're like, okay, I have this idea, but we got to get on the same page?
Yeah, so for us, there are two parts, right? There's the passion and the creativity that I had, but then it also needed to make financial sense.
Yeah.
Because what happens at times when we're working for companies, we just get in places when we're just frustrated.
Yeah.
And we may not like our job, and anything else that gives us joy, we want to pursue it.
Correct.
And so that's how people go on these jobs and they have these side hustles and these different things. It's maybe your side hustle is good,
Yep.
Maybe it's not, but the bigger issue is that you just don't like your job.
Right.
And so we had to come up with a plan to say, hey, okay, is this really sustainable? Do you have people that are willing to pay you for this work? Or
Right.
are you just frustrated
Yeah.
and maybe you just need to find another job?
Yeah.
So that was the big part. But the thing that really was a game changer for us was I got a contract, and it was a 5-year contract.
Wow.
And it was a 6-figure contract, and it was like, hey, this is my proof
Yeah.
that I can make money doing this consistency, and that provided a level of stability.
Okay. I like
And because she saw my passion, she saw that I was consistent with it. We had a contract in place that would pay us some money. It became, and we were saving money as well. She even had made some changes to what she was doing to make a little bit more money to help compensate for at the point that where maybe my income from my new job wasn't replacing my corporate job. So it's just like all of these things that needed to happen. And once we felt comfortable, we made the decision in a way for me to leave. Now it's a funny story. I ended up quitting my job, and I didn't even tell my wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was
Because you was frustrated?
I was tired of it. I was tired of it, bro. We had money saved.
Yeah.
We had made some investments. I had a couple contracts in place. I was like, I went into work one day, man. I literally, I could not hit Control-Alt-Delete to cut my computer on. I couldn't do it.
Damn.
I sat in my chair for about 15 minutes. I was like, oh yeah, this is the last day. I got up. I went to my boss. I was like, hey man, like, this is it. I'm done. And they knew that I was doing some other things.
Yeah.
I had some publicity and things, and on some other blogs. And I had won some awards, and so they knew about it.
Yeah.
They were just waiting.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then after I quit, it was probably about 3 days that went by before I even told my wife.
Were you nervous, or you just like, how do I tell?
I was off. See, that's the thing, man. You come up with these plans. You got to do what you say. You created the plan together. You got to execute the plan.
Correct, yeah.
And see, I had deviated a little bit, so I was a little nervous because I done stepped outside of the plan. But eventually, I was like, eventually I told her, like, hey, I quit my job. And the first thing she asked me, man, she was like, when did you quit? Like she already knew that I had quit. So so that was the process for us.
Yeah, I love it. So if I'm listening to it, one is it's having a plan in place, right? So when I go to have that conversation, it's like, all right, this is the plan, and then you said you had to execute on the plan because a lot of people they like, I'm trying to get somebody buying, like, bro, but you had this conversation 10 times and you ain't did anything. So now is it fair if somebody's seen you not perform and not execute for them to doubt you? I think it is. Yeah. But if you're saying, okay, cool, we got a plan, we communicated about it, she even saw you making adjustments financially to support that and then putting in the work, then you got some contracts coming in, but you didn't quit right after that. Because sometimes it's easy, as an entrepreneur, man, I have a big month, or, I have a big 2 months, and I'm like, okay, yeah, but that ain't your whole life. Like, an extra 10,000, extra 20,000 is different than only 10,000, only 20,000.
Absolutely.
And so I love that. And then, even the transparent part about, you did get frustrated. You know what I'm saying? Human. Quit.
I reached that point.
Yeah, no, that's real. And so, all right, so back to the Super Money Kids. So now you start the business.
Yeah.
All right, first of all, because people may not know, what exactly do you all teach kids?
Yeah. So we design digital financial literacy lessons that we license to schools and youth organizations.
Okay.
So from kindergarten really through college.
Wow.
We have these digital financial lessons that enabled organizations to start teaching young people about money. We have for younger kids, we have a product. It's our Super Money Bank. It's like an in-home piggy bank with way more swag.
Nice.
It has 3 money habits: saving, spending, and sharing. So it literally gives kids a place to put their money, literally and figuratively. And we use it as an instructional tool with our younger kids. But the core of our business is digital financial literacy content.
Nice. And so primarily you do this with schools. So would this be considered like government contract work, or what lane is this?
Yeah, it is government contract work. As a matter of fact, the biggest contracts that we have are with city municipalities.
Nice.
Most of the time, it's either directly through a school system or with the city itself.
Yeah. What made you choose that business model? Because like here it is, like some people would say, okay, I'm gonna put this out on social media, which I love the business because there's some people, they feel like that's the only way to build a business is I have to be on social media. I've got to do a whole bunch of things, sell a course and do ads. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a great way to build a business. But you all looked at it and said, okay, I think this is good, but we want to start on the education route and specifically with schools. What made you do that?
I had some relationships.
Okay.
To where it was easy for me to tap into education and do more of a B2B model.
Yeah.
Later on, really recently, like I've learned about just the market that exists through social media and more direct to consumer. Yeah. And it's a space that we're really interested in.
Yeah.
The thing about doing business in schools is it's really cyclical, right? Number one, schools aren't in session year round, right? Okay. You're only in school like.
Learned a new word today. You said cyclical.
Cyclical.
Okay, all right. You gotta look that
up. Every quarter looks a little bit different, and that impacts your business, right? Kids, they take breaks in the fall, in the winter, the new year, and all of those times there's some type of downturn in our business. And so having other revenue sources, other places to tap in could provide some support. So, but for us, it was like, hey, I feel like anytime you start a business, you want to start with what you have closest to you.
Right.
Start with what you know, and maybe friends, family, like whoever, like start there. And that's what we did. And kind of our intimate network had some relationships within schools. Yeah. We were able to prove that concept, and so we just kept doing that.
Wow, yeah, I love it. It's funny because like the first business I really did was like network marketing. And the first thing you taught is write a list. And it's like, call the people you know. And people are like, oh, no, I don't want to call people I know. But I'm like, listen, y'all don't understand. Pretty much every business I've ever run, I started out with some type of list of like, who do I know in this space? Who do I know this? Who do I know that? So I want y'all to know, I don't care what y'all do, you going to have to build a list. You heard me, man. Even with schools, even with the contracting, like you have to start with who you know. Why? Because that's the only place you can start. I think sometimes as an entrepreneur, you create in your mind this thing of like, man, I would love to start over there. But you can't.
Nah.
You got to start over here. Even you like, man, I'm working in a place with these people. Man, I didn't have those experiences. Yep. So now how do I go build that experience, right? I think that's really, really important.
And even if though that immediate circle isn't able to maybe buy your product or service or whatever, what they can do is they can give you credibility. Right? Because a lot of the times when you're in business and you're reaching out to organizations or people that you've never worked with or you don't know, it requires trust in order to close any type of deal.
Yeah,
like trust is probably one of the most important components to you being able to close a deal. And so even if those people aren't able to write you a check or give you a contract, they may be able to write you a referral that you can use to show to somebody that you don't know to say, hey, like, nah, he's the real deal. Like, he really does this.
Nice. I love that. Now, kids is something that's really important. I got a daughter. My daughter's 11, so I think like teaching, her about money is really important because it's like for kids, it's real easy to buy those apps all day, every day. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, can I get this $9, $10? Like I'm like, man, we done spent $150 on this little Roblox. Like we gotta chill out. So like, can you give us an example? Like, what's one lesson that you like a kid is taught about like money?
Yeah, so one of the things that I talk to my daughter about is like producers and consumers. Okay. Right? So if you're on Roblox, and I remember the first Roblox purchase that we made was my daughter was like, I want to buy this mansion. Yeah. I was like, buy a mansion? Like, what we doing? I didn't know anything about it. But, so I'm like, okay, well, if you buy this, this isn't real. It's something you're having fun with. We're going to buy it. You're consuming this. You're paying money for this level of entertainment. Yeah. Now, what we need to be thinking about is how you can become a producer. Like the people that own this application, right? They figured out a way to sell these mansions and all these other things. Yeah. What are you making? right? And so through that, we have a conversation about ownership and her making her own money.
Yep.
And so it has to be a balance. And I think that that's the case for kids and adults. We got to be consumers, right? Because we have needs and wants. But we need to figure out more ways to be a producer. And so early on, when I was spending money on things that she was using for enjoyment, I would put in her head, now we have to think about how we're going to make our money.
Yeah.
What do we own?
I like that.
And there's a lot that I try to teach my daughter that she just don't. She just don't remember. She don't care about.
All the way,
I tell people all the time, like, I'm the super money kids guy, but it's not perfect in my home, and it's not gonna be perfect anywhere.
Yeah.
You just have to keep planting the seeds. But the one thing that I'm really, really proud of my daughter for remembering is it's like, she knows that she has to own something and that she has to sell something.
Correct.
And she, she's able to make her money when she wants to.
Yeah, no, I think it's brilliant because just like you said, like a person may not be able to change everything financially today, or even their kids even master it today. But I think it's about having that dialogue because I have amazing parents, but most of the time we had conversations about money was because we didn't have none. Like, hey guys, listen, we was gonna say we was going to Disney World, but it ain't happening this year. And so a lot of times, some of those conversations, they're the negative, conversations about money. And I think you sometimes you gotta have both. You gotta have those negative, hey, look, we gotta tighten up, get on the budget, but it's also like there are rewards to saving. There are rewards to invest in long term.
I tell parents all the time, because there are a couple things, like we don't talk to our families or to our kids about money for a few different reasons. We don't feel like we're qualified, we're embarrassed, maybe we've made mistakes in the past. But even through our mistakes, our kids can learn, and we can learn from ourselves. Yep. And so you create this vulnerability when you're able to tell your kids, like, hey, I didn't do this right, but I want you to do it better. Because our kids used to us telling them what to do and how they should be and what's the impact of you messing this up later on in life. Like, they hear that all the time. But when we can go to our kids and be like, listen, this was something that I wasn't good at, and I believe that you can be better. Our kids remember that. And it's an approach that they're not used to, and they'll remember it. And so we just got to step outside of our own way and just like be straight up with our kids, like be authentic.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, you're a very present dad. I think that's one of the things I respect about you. One of the things, it's a lot of great things. But I'm a father too, like girl dad. So you know what I'm saying. I'm like anybody that's present, that's big. There's a thing that sometimes people are like, oh, I'm a single mother, or I'm a single father. And it's like, no, you're single and you're a mother. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not a single father. Like, did you get yours yet? The uniform for entrepreneurs all across the world. New Age CEOs. Go to newageceos.com. Make sure you get your uniform. Make sure you get your gear and represent all around the world. So I ain't single no more, but like it was like, all right, I still like my daughter's mom is still very present in her life.
Yeah.
So you are a single father, and I don't know how far you want to go with this, but what was that transition like? Because here it is, I made a transition, I'm in business, I'm running my business, and then there's a life change that happens, and now it's like, okay, I'm literally a single father, and there was a transition that happened there, because there may be people that have had similar circumstances in their life. What was that transition for him being like, okay, cool, we got a teammate, we working this thing, figuring it out tonight. Now I'm a single father.
Yeah. So in 2020. My wife passed. She had a heart condition. 2019, she had a heart transplant and did really, really well for a year, 11 months actually. She did really, really well for 11 months. Was in like the best shape of her life. She was just bright and bubbly and just had energy that she hadn't had for a very long time. And in May of 2020, her body rejected the heart, just abruptly. She had shown no signs of rejection prior to that moment. Wow. And then we went into the hospital on a Saturday for some back pain, and by Monday, she had passed. Wow. Completely unexpected. And so, she had been battling with some things, for 5 years prior to that. But the day that she passed, everything was different. It wasn't, I was stepping into a new era of my life being my daughter's only parent. Yeah. And I had a lot of thoughts. Initially it was like all of this adrenaline. He's like, I'm gonna be perfect. you know, she's not gonna miss anything, nothing's gonna change. And you know, if I didn't have to sleep, like whatever I had to sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's what I wanted to be for my daughter. But then you get to a place to where you're in that position and you can't physically do that. And to be honest, it isn't fair to anybody to expect that things are going to stay the same after a traumatic experience,
sure.
like losing a mother, losing a spouse. And I had to get some therapy, man.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, man. I had to get some therapy for myself, and I got a therapist for my daughter as well.
Okay.
And I would be really open in those sessions. But one of the things that my therapist would tell me every week when we met, she was like, Courtney, you show up every day, you give the most that you have, you do your best.
Yeah.
That's enough. You know, I set really high standards for myself. I want to get better.
Yeah.
You know, I cooked 2 times this week.
Yeah.
And some people might laugh at that, but for me to cook 2 times this week, like I need a trophy or something, okay?
Facts.
But I had to show myself some grace.
Yeah.
I also had to be honest with my daughter and tell her, like, hey, some things I don't know how to do, but what I can assure you is that I'm going to do everything in my power to make you feel like you have all the supports that you need. We can talk about whatever, whenever.
Yeah.
I'm available, and you are a priority in my life.
Yeah, I love that.
You know, so one of the things that I realized throughout this process, so it's been a little over 2 years now, but, you know, as an entrepreneur, I talk to a lot of people who own businesses, like all the time. I mean, my closest friends, everybody owns businesses. And not until recently have we really started talking about like how we feel as people. Everything's always about business, new strategies, how much money you made. Like, no, like we're people.
Yeah.
Like, and we have real needs. We have people we have to take care of.
Yeah.
And I started pouring more into me as a human than I was pouring into me as an entrepreneur. Because I
like that.
The entrepreneur part, I mean, I was about to get that up. I don't know what I was going to do, to be honest.
Yeah, you get like that.
But yeah, I just had to start pouring into me. And my daughter and I, we've gotten closer, you know, by the day. Yeah. We are creating new experiences, new memories, forever remembering her mom and honoring her mom and everything that we do. But we don't get ahead of ourselves. Just like, hey, let's take care of this for today and be loving. And we're not going to be perfect, but we can do our best.
Yeah. I love that, man. That's powerful. Like, you touched on something too that I think is a big conversation. Is, you know, obviously mental health is a big thing. And you said something about therapy, right? Which I think is big. And I'll be transparent. I was the guy that's like, listen, I ain't doing the therapy thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen, I was married one time. I did the therapy, and I was like, I was cool. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have no problems. But it was cool. But like, what was the, like, what did you get out of it? Because like, I know as an African American male, that's something that's like, yo, it's almost like you're weak if you go. And you got a therapist. Like, what's wrong with you, bro? You going to the crazy house? But it's not just, you know, people that have mental issues like, you know, they about to, you know, do something that, like a little different. It's sometimes you just got to process stuff and handle stuff. It's like, what made you get to the point it's like, all right, I need it. And then also, you know, obviously now you said your daughter, you even had her do it.
For us, you know, part of creating a lifestyle, I talked about this earlier, but creating a lifestyle that we didn't have when we were kids was being open to things that were going to make us better people. And so we were able to overcome the idea that therapy is only for when something is wrong. It's not the case. Like, you need therapy as maintenance. We need places to talk about what's on our mind. Because even with our closest friends, sometimes there are things we still just may not share. We may not be completely open.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we're also like born with these beliefs and morals and values that aren't always healthy. Yeah. And having somebody else that you could talk to about those things to help give you some insight on what's appropriate for where you are, like, is necessary. Yeah. It was really necessary. And I knew just, you know, just how anybody is close with their, well, most people are close with their spouse, but my wife and I, we were just really, really close, really, really good friends. and losing her, who was, she was a big champion
Yeah.
of me and supporter, and so losing that was tough. And so I knew instantly that I'm gonna find me somebody that I can talk to. But the best part about having a therapist is having another voice.
Yeah.
Because when you're by yourself, you can have these negative thoughts that are in your head, and they permeate and they grow and they start impacting you physically.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you just have somebody else to tell you, hey, it's really not that bad. Think about this. You're doing a great job. You're a good person.
Yep.
Oh, and by the way, practice this. Just like that. That's how it goes. It's healthy.
Yeah.
And it's not just about going to therapy because something is wrong.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it was cool. I went to therapy one time, and it was like, all right, time is up. I'm like, oh, we're not done. Well, I'm done. We have to continue this next week. I'm like, dog, okay. I can't just go over here and just be talking. It was a process, so I love that. So, you feel like you would ever get married again?
What's interesting is I had said that I would not get married again.
Wow, okay.
I was pretty committed to that idea. Marriage was, I had a great marriage. I had an amazing wife.
Yeah.
We were best friends. We were, most of the time, we were always happy. We didn't have to try to like each other. We didn't have to try to be in love. We didn't have to try to be attracted to it. It just happened. Everything just happened really, really natural. So it was a pretty easy marriage. I think it wasn't always great, but it was an easy marriage. But even with that, with everything working, with us liking each other naturally, with us sharing the same ideas about life and the world, marriage is hard. Marriage is hard as hell.
It is. It's a lot of work.
And so I never thought that I would do it again. But we don't control our futures, man. And it's so crazy just how just growth, different experiences, meeting the right people, meeting the right person, it will open your heart in a way that you never would have imagined.
Yeah.
And I am very open now to being married again. But that's one of those things that came out in therapy too.
Yes.
I remember being with my therapist, I ain't never get married again. And she would be like, oh, Courtney, you're still really young. Don't close off certain opportunities.
Yeah.
I'm like, no. She's like, oh, just give it some time. There's still more. And she's right there. Even there's no point in our lives to where there isn't more for us to explore. Yeah. And we should give ourselves space to explore. Yeah. Whether that's emotionally, spiritually, professionally, never close yourself off, because there could be another blessing right around there that you just don't even realize.
Yeah, I love it. How any tip for a single mother or father in terms of, I don't like to use the word balancing, but like to how can they handle, being a mother or father and then still having to handle their business? Has anything helped you? Because you still travel sometimes. Like there's like how's that process?
Yeah, I have an amazing support system that allows me to have the flexibility to travel and do different things I have to do with work. But everybody doesn't have that. Yeah. I still live in the city where I was born, and so naturally I have a big support system. But I'm hesitant on giving like a strategy. Yeah. Because we're all different. But what I would like to tell those people out there who are single parents and they want to figure out a way to do better or be better, number one, give yourself some grace. Yeah. You're doing an impossible job. Yeah. Wake up every morning, talk to yourself about how awesome you are, how good of a job you're doing. And if you have goals for yourself, you want to do something a little bit better, just make incremental improvement. Yeah. Don't overwhelm yourself, because as a single parent, it's overwhelming. And we just moved. We had a birthday coming up. I still have furniture in the house we moved out of. I have to rent that out, right? I have a business to run. Like there are all of these things happening at the same time. Yep. And if I allow all of those things to stress me out, like ever be without two parents. Yeah. right? So the first thing I would say is just give yourself some grace and space, recognize what you are already doing, and make incremental improvements. Don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Let's make a pivot into the business side, because obviously you do that for kids, but obviously you're a full-blown entrepreneur. I believe real estate as well.
Yeah.
What made you start diversifying into other areas to put your money?
I keep going back to the conversation that I had with my wife, and like, hey, we wanted to create a lifestyle that was different than how we grew up. My family didn't own any assets.
Yeah.
Most of her family didn't either. Her dad was really entrepreneurial, and he did some amazing things. But other than that, we just didn't come from a place to where owning assets was a thing. And we got into real estate because we had read books, and people said, hey, the way that people build wealth in America is through real estate. So we're like, all right, well, they say that's how you build wealth. We need to find some stuff to buy.
Yeah.
And we did a few things. We moved in with her dad for a year and paid off a lot of our debt, paid off all of her student loans, most of my student loans, paid off our cars. We were both driving luxury cars at that time. And we're like, okay, the cash that we've been able to save on a monthly basis, we're just gonna start, we'll automatically save it, and we'll look for ways to get involved in real estate. And we found a couple projects early on, and we're like, hey, let's do it. And literally that's how we got into real estate. It's just it's just stepping out there and doing it.
Yeah. But you did something that most people are not willing to do, like moving back in, paying down debt, because what I've noticed about any level of success is the result is never as attractive as the process. Definitely. And so it's like, yo, I want to own real estate. Okay, cool, go ahead, go move back with your parents, pay all your debt down, get your cash flow right then. But nah, I don't want to do it like that. And I'm not saying a person has to do that to get into it, but there are always going to be some type of sacrifices. I call them investments, because a sacrifice, in my opinion, is when you give something up and you don't expect anything in return. Yeah. An investment is like, all right, I'm giving this up for a period of time, but when I get it back, I want that back plus something. And so it's like, we gave up a year, but we got that year back plus some, because we got so far ahead of where we would have been. Yeah. And so I think that's a big tip for y'all. Like, if you over here like, oh, I want to get to the next level, okay, well, look, you might have to pull back on some stuff. Like, you might have to, I always tell people, like, you might have to unsubscribe from some stuff, those emails. You know what I'm saying? They real good at texting you. You might have to unsubscribe from all that stuff. Why? Because companies are really good at getting money from you. I'm a marketer, so don't unsubscribe from me. But everybody else, you know what I'm saying? Everybody else, but no, seriously, even if it's my stuff, like, it's like you have to say, okay, I've got to focus on this area of my life right now, which is debt, which is get my finance together, because that gives you a solid foundation to create what you want in the future.
Yeah, I like what you said. Like, you have to make an investment. Yeah. Like, I have never talked to anybody who had a major breakthrough and there wasn't like a period in their life where they had to make that investment or cut something back. Always. And that was how we got started. And real estate is cool. You want to be informed. There's a lot. So the first project that we got involved in, like, we had bought this lot. It was like it was like less than an acre, and it was empty. And we were going to build some townhomes on it. We're going to do like 6 townhomes on it, and we had, played around with these numbers, and it just seemed like it made sense. We were in Nashville. It was Nashville was just crazy if you're familiar what's happening in terms of real estate. But we learned so much along the way. We spent so much money. And we could talk about the process offline or whatever about what happened. But ultimately, we never built those townhouses. Wow. Never built them. It ended up being, at the time, a project that was way too advanced for us as beginners. Like, we had talk about biting off more than you could chew. Like, bro, it was ridiculous. It's like, no, what, we can't do this. This isn't a project for us. And then it got to the point to where the numbers didn't even make sense. Yeah. And so we were already kind of overwhelmed. Then the numbers got a little questionable, and I was like, hey, let's chill on this. And I ended up selling it. Okay, good. And I think we ended up selling that in my mind, you know, which was a failed project, we ended up making 3 times back what we had into the project, right?
Yeah.
That was failing.
Yeah.
But you know, you want to do the research, make sure you're in a good place to complete the projects that you're working on. And I mean, I had a friend who says, he talks about real estate. He's like, you know, if you find you a property that at a minimum you can rent it out and just pay the mortgage, like, it's a good deal, because 15 years from now, that house is more than likely going to be worth more than it was worth, and you've made money. That's a good investment.
Yeah, that's solid. That's solid. And but it's long term. It's not like, you know, you'll get rich, you know, tomorrow. You know,
you can. I mean, depending on how you want to do it. Like, if you want to buy houses and you want to flip them, and you take that first flip and flip it into something else, and you keep flipping up. I mean, you could make a lot of money in a year.
Wow. Yeah, that's strong. I said, you know, especially like with the, you know, the stuff coming up with the recession and stuff, and the cost of a lot of stuff is going to be dramatically changed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is a great opportunity to have cash and to be cash heavy, and, you know, kind of watch finances for opportunities.
Yep.
You know, because the first, you know, when I graduated high school in 2005, so, you know, the first recession that I was a part of that I remember, I didn't even have no money to take advantage of it. In fact, I ain't gonna lie, the first recession, I didn't even know it was a recession. I was like, I always live like this. What y'all talking about? Welcome to my life. You understand? Watch your gas prices, watch your food. Cool, I like it, you know? But now you realize that, okay, there are differences. You know, like, I was literally just talking to one of my friends, and they were like, man, my rent went up by $500. Gas prices went up. That was extra $200 or $300 a month. They're like, man, my expenses went up $700, $800, and I didn't make no extra money.
Yeah. So
I'm literally now losing off. I'm doing the same stuff though. I'm driving to the same places, and I'm living in the same spot, but it just cost me almost $800 a month more.
Yeah.
All right. With this recession, I don't like to even give it energy, because I believe you kind of create whatever you want, because some of my best years have been when things are really bad, personally. But what would you say to somebody that's, all right, hey, there is a change coming in the world financially. What are some things people can do to get prepared for a recession?
I think there are 2 different people that we're answering this question for. I think that there are people who may be in a place to where they're strapped financially.
Yep.
And I think that there are people who aren't necessarily strapped financially, and they may be looking for opportunity. Okay. And I think the message is different for both. So I'll try to speak to both. For the people that are strapped financially, you want to be conservative with what you're spending money on. You don't want to be doing anything too lavish that's going to exceed your budget.
Yep.
And you want to explore some ways where you can make extra money. Yeah. Nothing's guaranteed. You may have a job today. You may not have a job 3 months from now. You want to make sure that you have sufficient savings. Typically, the goal is 3 to 6 months, and that's because if you do lose a job, it typically takes 3 to 6 months to find another job.
Nice.
Right.
Okay.
So that's how that group wants to prepare themselves.
Yep.
Review your budget. Make sure you're not overspending. Make sure you have sufficient savings. Explore other ways that you can make money.
Yeah, I agree.
Then there are the people who may have a significant amount of discretionary income. Maybe they have some cash and savings that they may be able to do something with. Recessions are buying opportunities for investments. Take advantage. I think you even just said it a second ago, and I've heard other really successful entrepreneurs say the same thing, that their best years have actually been during down markets.
Yeah.
Invest that money. Don't over-invest to the point to where you find yourself without cash, and then you messed up. Then you got to go sell something for less than what market value was. You know, you don't want that to. You don't want to be that person.
I learned that from Monopoly.
Yeah,
you do it too much. Be like, wait a minute, I got $13 for rent,
and now you got to sell one of your properties during a recession. You don't want to be that person. All right. But look for buying opportunities. Definitely in the stock market, for sure. So I'll speak to something that I'm doing personally. Okay. I've never been a big trader. Yeah. And now we're in a recession. I am about to invest in a trading course myself.
There we go. Okay, I like that.
Right, because I want to be more involved in the stock market. Yeah. Find real estate that you can buy. Find markets that are really affordable. We're doing some of that right now, where you can find something that's a deal. You can rent it out. It pays for itself, and you just hold on to it till the market comes back. Wow. I'm not we talked about flipping a second ago. Me personally, I'm a casual real estate investor. Yeah. For me, I won't buy something and try to flip it during a recession, because you don't know what you're gonna get back from it. But I'll buy something, hold it, rent it out, and do that. But so for that group that does have discretionary income, maybe you have some cash, invest it. This is the time to be an investor. Because let me tell you something. That example that you just gave about your friends, like, man, my rent just went up. You know what I'm saying? Because of this recession or whatever, these things change. And now whoever owns that property that he's renting, they happy. Yeah. Personally, I have there's a rental that I own that I just had a tenant move out. We're putting it back on the market to get somebody else in it. And this has been in the span of like 2 months. I think that tenant was paying like $1,500 for the year that they were in there. Now rental rates are at $1,800. Oh wow! It's just changing the market. And so literally in a couple months, you know, that's $300 additional that we'll make in rental revenue just because of changing the market. So you want to get on that side.
Yeah. And I think that's what it is. It's like most of us are just on the wrong side of money because we're all playing this thing. It's just like, man, okay. Like I remember I went to All-Star Weekend in LA. And there was a guy that we was in his house, and he had nice cars. It was his house. He had a couple other houses. I was like, man, what you doing for All-Star? He's like, oh, nah, I'm working. He's like, y'all out here trying to spend money. I'm out here collecting money. And I was like, man, that's really the mentality. It's like what we see as opportunities to spend. Everybody else that's thinking money is like, okay, how can I turn this into a revenue-making opportunity? Yep. It's like, you know, even like that what you said for that property, it's the same house. And so it's like for them, it's like they're probably talking about it on the other side. Yeah, I got this property. I've had it for years. I just charged them an extra $500 a month. Nothing changed. I got more income coming in. And so I think what was interesting for me is instead of getting mad at how things were, I literally said what you said, which was I got to start to get on the right side of money because I'm just playing this game wrong because I'm playing a game where other people can dictate the rules the entire time and I have no say so. Yep. So that's why understanding money at an early age I think is really important because you can start getting exposed to those kind of conversations.
Yeah, and you can identify the opportunities. So back to the conversation I was telling you about with my daughter. It's like, okay, you're going to be a consumer. You don't really have a choice in this country, but you got to produce something. Right. And so she, hopefully for the rest of her life, she'll always try to find opportunities where she can get on the right side of the transaction.
Yeah, no, I love it. What would you say adults need to know about saving and investing?
Saving builds a habit.
Yep.
That I think most people have heard saving and they're told that saving is important, but building up that habit allows us to become investors. Yeah. We got a lot of people who've done well saving and they've never been an investor, right? So they have money sitting in, you know, accounts that aren't earning any interest and their savings is being eroded by inflation. You know, so they're actually losing money. Right. We need to be thinking about ownership. We talk a lot about income in this country. So you think about it like, yo, I want to make 6 figures. Yeah. Right. That's about income. Yeah. You need to budget your money. That's about income. Yep. We don't talk about net worth. Yeah. We don't talk about our personal balance sheet. We don't talk about the assets that we own, trying to minimize our liabilities so that we have a high net worth. Correct. The only time we talk about net worth in this country is when we're celebrating somebody else being worth $1 billion. Right, I agree. That's it. We won't talk about our personal net worth because we focus on income.
So how would a person find their net worth?
Yeah, so you look at, so your net worth is an equation. It's your assets minus your liabilities equals your net worth. Your net worth is your wealth. So your assets are going to be your cash, stocks that you own, real estate. It can be cars, jewelry, cryptocurrency.
Yeah. Can it be Jordans? Got to throw some Jordans on there?
If you own enough Jordans to where it's gonna make a material difference, you absolutely can. And if those Jordans aren't worn or they have resale value, like if you can sell them and make more from them than what you paid, they can. Yeah, okay, they can. Good. All right, hey, y'all heard it, my sneakerheads. They can. Add it
to the balance sheet, you know what I'm saying? It can help you out.
Now, if your sneakers, they beat, you know what I'm saying? You wore them to homecoming and they're like, nah, you know, there's no resale value there, my friend. Leave those off. But so those are all of your assets. But then you got to subtract the things that you owe. So you may have a mortgage on that house that you own. You want to put that as a liability.
That question with that, when you do that, do you say, okay, the liability is my monthly payment or like what I owe on the house?
It's what you owe. So let's say you have a home and the value of the home, meaning if you were to sell it today, is $300,000. Okay. but you have a mortgage on that home where you owe to the bank $150,000.
Okay.
All right. So as an asset, you have $300,000. As a liability, you have $150,000.
Got it. Okay.
And if that was the only asset that we owned, in that example, our net worth would be $150,000.
Got it.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Because I mean, for black people net worth is basically zero.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's really like $17,000, but
wow,
it might as well be zero.
Yeah, that's zero. Yeah, that don't last long.
Yeah.
So we talk about like the spending power of like the African American community. Why do you feel like it's a challenge to? Because it's not producing income is not the challenge for the community.
We know how to make money.
It's keeping it. It's like what do you feel like that is?
I think it's what we were just saying. It's just lack of conversation around buying assets, building their worth. Again, when you always talking about income, you naturally are thinking about spending it.
Yeah.
But I think we have entered an era where that's changing.
Yeah.
And just like anything else, like cultural change happens at the top. It's our artists, it's our musicians, it's the people that we look up to. And we've entered a space and like I done seen you around, like, when you go out in public as an entrepreneur, like people excited to see you. You know what I'm saying? And you're an entrepreneur. Like your shirt, and like I'm not a rapper, I'm not an athlete, like I'm an entrepreneur. We've entered an era to where you are where young people are striving to be.
Correct, yeah.
And so that's changing culturally. That wasn't the case before.
No, not at all.
The music that we was listening to was the cars, the chains, like, the trips, and that's it. And so now, like, what we value is different. And that's because of the people that set the culture. What they value is different.
Yeah. I agree with that 1,000%. I think one of the reasons that now entrepreneurs have become a little bit more prominent is just because when we were growing up, the athletes, the rappers, drug dealers, those are the only people that you saw living the lifestyle that we wanted to live. And so some people tried music, some people tried, being an athlete, and some people just resorted to just, and I think all of it came down to who you were around a lot of times when you were growing up. But I think, for me, what I'm seeing is, I feel like as African Americans, we got to get around people that make doing the right investments cool. Yeah. Like, for instance, like you go to the club. Like for me, I'm not really like a club person because I'm like I know this bottle costs $100.
If that.
You know what I'm saying? Like I know it costs. So it's $600 because y'all bring it out and put some sparklers behind it, and I stand on this couch. Like I'm like, that's not it. But I started realizing it was because like a lot of this is my thoughts. I'm not saying this is right, but a lot of the purchases that we make have to do with ego. Meaning that it just makes me feel good. So I go to Louis because when I put it on, I can get that validation of making me feel good. I'll go buy the bottles in the club, overpriced and all, because when they bring out the thing and they put my name on the sign, it make me feel like I'm winning, and so I can buy the recognition that I couldn't necessarily get in my life. And I'm not saying that's everybody, but what I'm saying is, if you was around some people that was like, man, so how many properties you got this year? It's like, shoot, man, I ain't got nothing. Man, you didn't get no properties? But if you can start to change the environment that you're in and get around different circles of people, the conversation becomes different. Like I'm in some circles, I'm like, dang, I step my game up because I ain't even in real estate like that yet. I need to add that to some of the things I'm doing. So I think to what you're saying is big, but also having that delayed gratification and not needing your ego scratched right away can help too.
Yeah, man. And we get to the point like I'm not gonna stop going to the club. I'm not gonna stop buying bottles, but we want to get to a point to where that's not to satisfy our ego. Correct. And we're doing that to celebrate the good decisions that we've made.
That's the only time I do it too, like, or somebody else is celebrating something. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. One of my biggest financial mistakes, now I'll ask you what yours is literally, and I say this all the time, is that I realized, bro, one day I looked in my closet and I had more money in my closet than I had in my bank account. And I was looking at a Gucci belt and I was like, man, I need that $500 right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, what was going on in my head that I could, some of this stuff you realize, like, man, I could have waited on that. Yeah. And they were bad financial decisions at the time. And it's not that I couldn't afford it, but I realized I really couldn't afford it. What I realized is just because I have the money doesn't mean I can afford it. And so I had to start getting smarter. And now, like, what I do is I just set financial goals. Like, give you an example. My mentor told me my first Rolex watch, he was like, save $100,000 and then go buy the Rolex. I'm like, but the Rolex is $23,000. Why? Bro, I got $23,000. He's like, no, you can't afford it yet. I'm like, bro, what you mean I can't afford this? Look at my bank account. And he's like, no, you can't afford it. But when I saved it and I did, I like, man, it feels so much better to have this in there, plus having the watch, which, you know, obviously that grows in value and stuff too. But, you know, it was a different situation. And that was a shift for me because the old Justin would have just went ahead and bought it when I just had the money.
Yeah.
But man, that was terrible.
It's funny. I've heard people say, like, if you can't buy it 5 times, then you can't afford it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what. I mean,
yeah, that's basically what it is. Yeah. That's strong. Yeah. What about you? Any big financial mistakes?
Bro, like I was terrible with money, man. I was really, really bad with money. I remember I worked during college, and I had a decent job to be a college student, man. I'd overdraft my account and wouldn't worry about it because I knew my direct deposit was coming in, man. And it was like I was paying the bank and myself like at the same, and I didn't even have an emotional response to it. Yeah. Which was that I was so used to it, I didn't even care. Yeah. And it was so bad. But I got to a point to where, you know, I had started going to the little payday lenders, the little pawn shops back then. I don't know if they still do it at the pawn shops anymore, where you do like the paycheck cash advance. And
oh wow!
I started going, and I was like, man, it's just like having an addiction that was just like bro, like you sliding fast. You know what I'm saying? Like you started at weed and you was thinking about hitting the crack pipe. Like that's where I was, man. I needed some help. Yeah. And I don't know what I don't know exactly what the change was for me to just maybe like get myself together, but instantly I was like, we just gotta live differently. We gotta live different. That's one of the things that pops up at the top of my mind. Another one, this is one of those like ego moments. I had taken my wife out to this steakhouse, and you know, sometimes on the menu they may have something listed and it just got like the MP, like the market price. Yeah. So you don't know how much it is. You have to ask, and so, you know, they came out and I was asking about this steak that they had on the menu, and they were explaining it, and the steak sounded amazing. It just had MP next to it, and I didn't ask them the price, and they just brought it out. But that steak, it was like $132 just for the steak, and I was like, dang, just for me not asking the question, man, $100, because I wouldn't have got this steak, because this was. I mean, honestly, even today, like I don't think I've ever had a $132 steak. Even now. And this was well before being an entrepreneur and being an investor.
Did you at least taste it?
No, I ate it and I paid for it. I ate it and I paid for it. But it was a very valuable lesson. You know, like I wanted to, you know, I didn't want to ask questions in front of my lady. Like I wanted to look a certain type of way. Like I had it, you know, but I was like, dang, she laughed, she giggled the whole time. But sometimes we just need to ask a question. Yeah. Let me follow that up with another story about the importance of just asking when it has to do with money. I'll make it short. I owned a property. I had bought a rental property and needed to get insurance on it. Yep. And the insurance company was going to give me, the house was worth $250,000. Wow. Insurance company was only going to cover it for $150,000. I was like, hey, that's not enough coverage. You know, why aren't y'all, you know, covering it for what the value of the house is? And they're like, well, we have these models and based on the neighborhood. And it was in a gentrifying area that historically the housing values weren't well, but it was at a point where the housing values had shot up really, really fast. Not to mention, less than a year before I was buying this house, a tornado literally had ripped through the neighborhood, tore all types of houses down. People lost their properties because they had insufficient insurance for the homes. And so I was like, hey, this isn't enough. Like, who I need to talk to? Yeah. All right? Because y'all not about to give me $150,000 of coverage on a house that's worth $250,000. And they were like, well, we got to get a special approval. And they made it seem like it's going to be this really long process. I was like, all right, let's do it. How we get started? She was like, well, let me finish the rest of the paperwork. So she finishes the paperwork, and she's like, all right, we're all good to go. And I was like, all right, thank you. So now what do I need to do to get this extra $100,000 of coverage? She was like, I ended up not having to do it. So I was just able to enter it, and so now you had a coverage. Had I never asked the question, I would have had a house that had $100,000 less insurance than what it was worth.
Wow. Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta ask.
Yeah, you ask. Be bold enough to ask the question.
Yeah.
Or
don't even be bold. Be scared, but ask.
Yeah,
anyway.
there you go. I like. Yeah, be scared enough to ask.
Be scared enough to ask.
I like that. What I know you were telling me earlier you had some initiatives that you were working on with your company. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, man. So with Super Money Kids, our focus is all about making financial education accessible for young people, specifically in schools. And one of the things that we've learned through this work is the best advocate for the work that we do is through parents and teachers.
Okay.
And so we're launching an ambassador program where as an educator or as a parent, you can be not just an ambassador for Super Money Kids, but for financial literacy. Wow. You can talk about the importance of it, how it's changed your life. We'll give you some things that you can share in your communities. And we just ask for introductions to the people that are working in your school, maybe in the community or the school district.
Nice.
We even have opportunities to where you can sponsor our program for a school that you attended as well.
Wow, that's awesome.
It's a way to give back.
Okay.
When we talk about Super Money Kids, adults all the time, they say, man, I wish I would have had that when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you can make sure that another kid does have it.
I love it.
We're really, really excited about those.
I guess we'll get a link or something. We'll put it in the show notes so people can find that, because I think that's awesome to be able to continue to give back and help the next generation. I was always taught when it comes to your life, like the ceiling of your life should be the floor for your kids. And so like the highest you go, your kids should never go below that. And that to me a lot of times comes down to, financial education. I always tell people this, like my grandfather, he passed and we were going through his stuff and we looked at his birth certificate and it had like his mom and his dad, and his dad's occupation was laborer. And I was like, dang, what was he doing? And like we look back through it and it's like, man, we not that many generations away from slavery. And when you look at it, like there were some people that was, they might be on the edge and they remember some of those times where at least people were segregated for sure. Oh, and so when you look at what people have been able to accomplish over the last 100 years, a lot of it's incredible thinking about that, man, not too long ago, nobody had any opportunity. And so one of the keys to that next level comes with financial independence. A lot of it comes with real estate, because all I do is I look at the things that we were kept out of, and it's like, okay, why did they keep you out of it? All you gotta do is figure out, okay, if they kept us out of it, or they make the language confusing, I probably need to be over there and understand what this is, And for some people, I know for me, if I don't understand it, it's real easy for my mind to shut down. It's like, all right, this is too much. Even investing, I was like, man, I don't want to do investing because it sounds like a lot of math. And then it was like, wait a minute, no, this ain't math then. All right, so let me. I was making up my own little scenarios of stuff that wasn't even really real. So I love that. Love to also be able to help with it. How can people find you, your company, and connect with you?
Yeah, you can find us on social media, on all social media platforms at Super Money Kids Co. That's Super Money Kids Co. Our website is supermoneykids.co. You can find me at Super Money Court, COURT.
There we go. And you can find them on the Titans field losing to the Colts. No, I'm joking. Next year. They beat us this year twice. But nonetheless, man, I'm grateful for you coming through, bro. Definitely love to have you back, because the amount of knowledge that you have when it comes to money, we really didn't even dive too deep into everything that you know, which I think is great to continue to pull from and continue to learn from people and sit down. I think more people need to have conversations like this about money, about healing, about good conversations about building healthy relationships, which are really important too. So I appreciate you coming through, man.
Man, appreciate you having me again.
Absolutely. All right, listen, y'all, we back. Wrapping up the show. And y'all know we can't wrap up the show without what we do best. You know what I'm saying? I always like, look, Corey, every time somebody come through, man, I like to give them a little something. So, since you ain't seen none of the new age
man.
Here, you know what I'm saying? So you get to keep the duffel bag. Well, I'll let you have it, you know what I'm saying?
No, this is
get
dope,
you, you know what I'm saying? Nice new age CEO's gift bag. Got you some RUNTHEPLAY stuff in there. Got some new age stuff. Got your duffel bag.
Oh,
you know
stuff on the inside?
Oh yeah, stuff on the inside.
Oh man,
we'll hook you up, man. You know what I'm saying?
Man, I appreciate it, man.
You set up, man. You know what I'm saying? So, that's the least I could do. You know what I mean?
I appreciate it, brother.
My brother came through, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I appreciate you, man. Listen, y'all. RUNTHEPLAY show. My man Courtney just gave y'all some of the top plays when it comes to financial literacy. And listen, y'all, get your kids this financial literacy stuff. It's a big deal. If you didn't have it, the best gift you can have is to give it to your kids, to give it to your nieces, to give it to your nephews, to give it to people in your community, because that's how we level up the next generation. And here's the thing that's amazing. You never know the child that you help, how they can come up and be a blessing in your life, somebody else that you care about in the future. So appreciate y'all for tuning in. We'll see y'all on the next episode. What's going on? Listen, make sure you guys go to RunThePlayStore.com. Get your official Run the Play gear. We talk about shirts, socks, jackets, for everybody that's Run the Play all across the world.
Are you ready? We're gonna run the play. Let's go. Do you know what it's like to come from nothing at all, but every day you just wanting it all? Do you know